What if we told you America's tourism industry is collapsing, and it's not because of internal politics, inflation, or another lockdown? No, it's foreign nations pulling the plug. Behind the scenes, countries that once flooded U.S. cities with eager travelers are now backing out fast, and the reasons range from soaring visa delays to explosive diplomatic meltdowns. From Canada slamming its borders to Europeans turning their backs, the numbers are staggering. Critical travel routes down over 70%, visa wait times stretching past 700 days, and foreign spending in freefall. This isn't just a travel slump, this is a seismic collapse with devastating economic fallout. So why are longtime allies suddenly boycotting America? What's pushing global travelers to cancel U.S. trips in record numbers? And could this be the final warning for an already fragile economy? Let's count down the 10 countries triggering America's travel collapse in 2025, and trust us, number 1 country will leave you stunned. Number 10, Colombia, once hailed as a rising star in Latin American tourism, and for good reason. With a rapidly growing middle class and a hunger for international travel, Colombian visitors pumped millions into U.S. cities like Miami, New York, and Los Angeles. But fast forward to 2025, and outbound travel from Colombia to the United States is in freefall. Why? Because U.S. visa processing for Colombians has slowed to a crawl, with delays reaching up to 500 days in some regions. The bottleneck is so severe that families planning reunions, students seeking education, and even business travelers are being forced to look elsewhere. What's even more shocking is how avoidable this collapse was. The U.S. State Department has been aware of the growing visa demand in Colombia since at least 2023, but failed to allocate enough resources to handle the surge. As a result, hopeful travelers are either abandoning their plans, or worse, rerouting their dollars to Europe and Asia. This shift in destination preference is quietly bleeding the U.S. tourism sector dry, with Colombia's contribution dropping by double digits in just 12 months. The impact is being felt hardest in states that rely on Latin American travelers to sustain their economies. Florida's hotel bookings from Colombian tourists are down nearly 18% in early 2025 alone, a staggering blow for a region already battling rising costs and climate-related disruptions. Retailers, airlines, and even theme parks are seeing ripple effects. Why is no one talking about this? And here's the real kicker. This decline isn't just about travel. It's about perception. A growing number of Colombians now see the U.S. as unwelcoming, chaotic, and unpredictable. If that image takes root, the damage may outlast any future visa fix. Could this be the tipping point for Latin America's relationship with America? Number 9, Turkey. Strategically located at the crossroads of East and West, Turkey has always played a unique role in global travel. For decades, Turkish tourists represented a reliable stream of high-value visitors to the U.S., educated, wealthy, and politically curious. But that flow is drying up, fast. Geopolitical tensions between Washington and Ankara have escalated dramatically in the past year, fueling public distrust and bureaucratic roadblocks. Turkish travelers now face extended visa interviews, heightened security screenings, and travel advisories that paint the U.S. as hostile terrain. In 2025, Turkish travel agencies are reporting a 30% drop in U.S. bookings compared to pre-2020 levels. Why such a sharp decline? The answer lies in the paperwork and the politics. The average Turkish applicant now waits over 9 months for a tourist visa. Business visas are even worse. And with public opinion in Turkey turning sharply anti-American after recent diplomatic standoffs, many would-be travelers are asking, why bother? What's truly alarming is how invisible this collapse has been in mainstream U.S. media. Turkey's withdrawal isn't just symbolic, it's strategic. With Turkey pushing deeper into BRICS economic alliances and forging closer ties with China and Russia, the country's shift away from American tourism is part of a larger geopolitical realignment. Could this be a preview of a new global travel order where the U.S. is no longer the default destination? And that's just the beginning. Airlines are already cutting routes. Cultural exchanges are being frozen. And tourism-dependent businesses in cities like New York and Washington, D.C., which used to cater heavily to Turkish tourists, are quietly laying off staff. The long-term damage may be far worse than most Americans realize. Number 8. Brazil. Brazil has historically been one of the top 5 sources of Latin American tourism to the United States, injecting billions into the American economy each year. But in 2025, those numbers are falling off a cliff. The biggest culprit: an absolutely broken visa system. Brazilian travelers are now facing a mind-bending 700-day wait for U.S. tourist visas. That's nearly 2 years, just to visit. Think about that. Who in their right mind is going to plan a family vacation 2 years in advance? This isn't just a bureaucratic hiccup, it's a full-blown systemic failure. The U.S. Embassy in Sao Paulo has been overwhelmed since late 2023, and despite repeated promises to fix the backlog, delays keep getting worse. Meanwhile, Europe has been rolling out the red carpet. Countries like Portugal, Spain, and France have slashed visa wait times for Brazilians, and the results are obvious. Brazilian tourism to Europe is up 19%, while travel to the US is down over 22%. The economic fallout is brutal. Cities like Orlando, heavily reliant on Brazilian families to fill hotel rooms and shop luxury outlets, are reporting some of their lowest occupancy rates in a decade. Airline routes from Sao Paulo and Rio are being slashed. Retailers catering to Brazilian shoppers, who typically spend more than average tourists, are sounding alarm bells. But what's most disturbing is the psychological shift. Brazil's middle and upper class used to see the US as the gold standard for global travel. That image is eroding, fast. And once lost, that prestige doesn't come back easily. Could this be the moment Brazil walks away from its American travel dreams for good? Number 7. Italy, long regarded as one of the crown jewels of European tourism, is now rapidly withdrawing from the U.S. travel stage. In 2023, over 1.1 million Italians visited America, but by early 2025, preliminary bookings had dropped nearly 28%. Why? It's not just economic uncertainty, it's political disillusionment, border hostility, and systemic breakdowns in U.S. visa services. Italian travelers, once enchanted by American culture, now cite frustration, delays, and an unwelcoming attitude at ports of entry. Italian media have increasingly highlighted stories of travelers detained for hours, interrogated, or sent back without clear cause. These stories go viral. Public outrage has reached a boiling point, leading travel forums to warn against visiting the U.S. altogether. Meanwhile, American visa appointment wait times for Italians have now stretched past 270 days in major cities like Milan and Rome. This isn't just bureaucracy, it's a systemic collapse. And what happens to U.S. tourism? Regions like Florida and California, once flooded with high-spending Italian tourists, are watching their European lifeline disintegrate. Restaurants, boutique hotels, and tour agencies are bleeding cash. One hotel chain in Miami reported a 35% decline in European bookings, most of it traced directly to Italy and France. If this trend continues, Italian travel to the U.S. may fall below 800,000 visitors annually, a figure not seen since the early 2000s. But the larger question is this: if America can't maintain ties with countries it once called allies, what hope is left for its global travel appeal? The cracks are showing, and Italy is just the start. Number 6. Denmark. Denmark may be small in population, but its travel footprint is massive, and it's shrinking fast. In 2023, over 400,000 Danes visited the U.S., spending nearly $1.3 billion. But in 2025, U.S.-bound bookings from Denmark are down by an astonishing 41%. Why? Because an overwhelming 74% of Danes now say they view the U.S. unfavorably, up from just 38% a decade ago. This is not a dip. It's a diplomatic nosedive. What triggered the collapse? A combination of aggressive American foreign policy, social justice controversies, and fears of mass shootings have all played a part. Danish influencers and journalists have called America a hostile environment, with safety cited as a top concern. In a viral 2024 poll conducted by Berlingske, 61% of Danes under 40 said they had no interest in traveling to the U.S. under current conditions. That should terrify U.S. tourism boards. Economically, this has ripple effects. Scandinavian tourists, including Danes, tend to spend significantly more than average travelers. A Danish visitor typically spends more than $3,000 per trip, not including luxury accommodations and guided tours. Their disappearance from the U.S. market is hitting premium tourism sectors hard, especially in cities like New York, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C. So here's the real question. How did America go from global dream destination to a country that even its closest European friends actively avoid? Denmark's collapse isn't just political, it's symbolic. And that's just the beginning. Number 5. France. France has long been a titan of transatlantic tourism, with over 1.7 million French citizens visiting the U.S. in 2019 alone. But today, the story is dramatically different. In 2025, French bookings are expected to drop by at least 25% compared to pre-pandemic levels. That's billions in lost revenue. And make no mistake, it's political. French citizens are fed up with long visa delays, humiliating treatment at customs, and America's increasingly volatile global image. French travelers have spoken loud and clear. The U.S. is no longer worth the hassle. Visa appointment delays in Paris have crossed 300 days, with horror stories of applicants being denied without explanation. Even business-class passengers, once seen as VIP travelers, are being stopped, questioned, and treated like potential threats. French newspapers now routinely publish guides on how to avoid the U.S. for vacation. Think about that. What's worse, this backlash is hitting key U.S. cities that heavily rely on French tourists: New York, Miami, Los Angeles. Luxury hotels are seeing cancellation rates as high as 30% for the summer of 2025, and French airlines are slashing routes to the U.S. due to declining demand. America's tourism industry is hemorrhaging credibility and cash. If France is turning away, what does that say about the Western alliance? The damage here isn't just financial, it's cultural, psychological, and diplomatic. And it may take years to repair, if it ever can be. Number 4. Germany. Germany has always been a bedrock of stable, high-value travel to the United States. But in 2025, that foundation is crumbling. According to new polls, 56% of Germans now view the U.S. unfavorably, an all-time high. This negative sentiment has already translated into a 25% collapse in summer travel bookings from Germany. That's not just a warning sign, it's a full-blown alarm. The reasons are layered: concerns over gun violence, the erosion of democratic norms, strained diplomacy under multiple U.S. administrations, and rising visa complications. In Berlin and Munich, it now takes up to 9 months to secure a U.S. travel visa, and once you arrive, the welcome isn't always warm. Travelers report invasive questioning, biometric scanning delays, and aggressive customs searches. For the American tourism sector, this is catastrophic. German tourists are among the highest spenders globally, averaging $4,500 per trip. That money once supported hotels, restaurants, and cultural sites across the U.S. But now, it's vanishing, and with it, thousands of tourism-dependent jobs. States like Florida, Nevada, and Illinois are seeing deep revenue slashes across German markets. Here's the brutal reality. When even Germany, America's economic and diplomatic twin, is cutting ties, what future does U.S. tourism have left? If this collapse continues, America could become isolated, not by walls, but by worldwide rejection. Number 3. United Kingdom. This one hurts. The United Kingdom has been one of America's strongest travel partners for over a century. But in 2025, that partnership is unraveling. Visa complications have exploded, with some British travelers now waiting 700+ days for a U.S. visa. Yes, nearly 2 years. Detentions lasting up to 12 days have made headlines, sparking national outrage. What used to be a hop across the pond now feels like navigating a bureaucratic minefield. British media is sounding the alarm. Outlets like The Guardian and BBC have exposed shocking stories of UK citizens being turned away from US airports despite having valid documentation. Public confidence has evaporated. Booking rates from the UK have plummeted, and major travel agencies are seeing record levels of cancellations. The message is clear: Britain no longer trusts the US travel system. The consequences are massive. UK travelers made up nearly 12% of international travel revenue for the US in 2022. That chunk is rapidly disappearing. Las Vegas, Boston, and Orlando, all cities with deep ties to British tourism, are losing millions. British Airways has cut several US routes, and travel influencers are telling their followers to avoid the US at all costs. Ask yourself this: if even Britain is abandoning the US travel scene, who's left? This isn't just a travel decline, it's a geopolitical divorce. And it's accelerating fast. Number 2, Mexico. Mexico has always been a cornerstone of US travel, both inbound and outbound. But as of 2025, that relationship is in crisis. February data shows a 6% decline in Mexican air travel to the US compared to the previous year. What's driving the drop? A wave of intensified border crackdowns, negative rhetoric from US officials, and deepening resentment over how Mexican nationals are treated when entering the US. Even routine travelers are now caught in the chaos. Families separated at checkpoints, students turned away, tourists grilled like criminals. Word is spreading, and it's devastating America's reputation. Mexican news outlets report that over half the population no longer sees the US as a safe or welcoming destination. The numbers prove it. Cities like San Diego, Houston, and El Paso, heavily dependent on cross-border tourism, are seeing major losses. Hotel occupancy rates near the southern border are down 33% in some areas. Local economies that once thrived on Mexican foot traffic are now facing layoffs and closures. The US isn't just losing tourists, it's losing trust. And let's be honest, when your second largest tourism partner is walking away, you're not facing a slowdown. You're facing collapse. But what comes next will shock you. Number 1, Canada. You hear that right. Canada, America's closest ally, neighbor, and biggest travel source, is triggering the most devastating collapse of all. In 2024, nearly 20 million Canadians visited the US, making up 26% of international travel revenue. But now, traffic at major border crossings is down 45%, and bookings during peak seasons have plummeted by over 70%. This isn't just decline, it's freefall. So what went wrong? Tariffs, tensions, border delays, and a growing sense that the US no longer welcomes Canadians like it used to. A newly implemented 25% tariff on certain goods has stirred economic anger. Meanwhile, wait times at crossings like Niagara and Detroit-Windsor have ballooned to 4 to 6 hours. That's not tourism, that's torture. For the US, this is a nightmare scenario. Canadian tourists spend billions across northern states, from ski resorts in Vermont to beach towns in California. Their absence is being felt immediately. One Michigan Travel Bureau reports losing 60% of its Canadian revenue in just the first half of 2025. Entire downtowns are hollowing out. But the worst part, Canada's travel media is now warning citizens to explore friendlier alternatives, like Spain and Japan. When even your friendliest neighbor says, enough is enough, the collapse isn't coming. It's already here. So what does it all mean? The numbers are undeniable. Up to $18 billion in projected tourism losses, tens of thousands of jobs at risk, and America's reputation in freefall. This isn't just a downturn. This is a global rejection of what the US has become on the world stage. Visa delays, border hostility, political chaos, and a growing sense that the American dream is no longer worth the airfare. From Canada to France, Mexico to Germany, the message is loud and clear. Tourists are done waiting, done tolerating, done spending. The travel collapse of 2025 isn't a fluke. It's a reckoning. And unless radical change occurs, diplomatic, logistical, and cultural, America risks becoming the world's most avoided travel destination. So ask yourself, is this just the beginning of a tourism winter, or the final warning sign of a global retreat from American influence?